Hey everybody, Goosebumps for Dummies here, back at it again with another video. Of course, as always, as basically per usual. And today we're going to be talking about my top 5 darkest Goosebumps books. Now, for my criteria for this top 5 list, it can be literally anything. So, let's get to it. So, before we get into this, what the fuck do I define dark as exactly? Well, dark isn't necessarily, oh, there's bloodshed every chapter, somebody's getting decapitated, oh no, that's crazy, ah, shit. But death does play into this role. It's about dark plots and premises that involve death, some really hard struggles for some characters, as you'll see, and just overall really messed up stuff. And, yeah, that's what's gonna show up on this list today. Nothing like books with extreme violence every single chapter. That's more like the most violent Goosebumps books, if you know what I mean. We're talking about dark with like really eerie and messed up stories. So, yeah. And to start off, we're gonna do number 5, Jackal and Heidi. Now, Jackal and Heidi is very iconic for how dark it is and how good it is. I think this is one of the best Series 2000 books. Plus, it's a Wilmot copy, I just realized, so that's awesome. Yeah, so this one has quite a dark premise with this kid. I mean, first chapter, he's explaining that his parents just got in a massive car wreck. It was really brutal, and they passed away. And now he's being sent off, I think she actually is being sent off to her uncle's place. Her uncle doesn't really care that she's there. He acts like he does, but it seems like he's more focused on other stuff, his work. Of course, this is the uncle character. Your cousin does not like her at all. She makes it abundantly clear that she's not happy with her there, obviously. And then there's also this maid character who's just pretty absent in the story. It's just kind of like, dang, these people don't like me. It kind of adds to the darkness, like, this kid has no friends anymore. Nobody to care about. Barely even countable as a family. It's pretty dark to start off with. Not to mention the entire town will not be friends with her because they hate their uncle. Yeah, that sucks a lot. And then when you get into the later stuff involving the actual Jekyll and Heidi plot, it gets even worse in darkness. Like, there's some really brutal stuff involving the house and the climax. May or may not start a fire. The kid is in genuine danger. Not just from the fire as well. They're wanting to kill them. Yes, they're basically being hunted and killed. Yeah, that's really dark. And the worst part is, this book does not have a happy ending. It has somewhat of a happy ending. It's kind of optimistic, but to say the least, we don't really know if the ending in this book is going to end off like, oh, is it going to be really happy or not? Because it kind of just leaves off like the character's thinking, oh, what the fuck is going to go on? And then she gets revealed that she might be turning into, I think, a Jekyll or Heidi or whatever the fuck it is. A Jekyll, Heidi, what? I don't know what the fuck it's called, but still. Yeah, it's a pretty interesting book, and it's definitely a good contender for the darkest Goosebumps story. Next up is Ghost Camp. Yes, number 4 is Ghost Camp. Now, I've made this clear in the past, I'm not a ginormous fan of Ghost Camp. I think it's a wee bit overrated. But that doesn't mean it ain't dark as fuck, and actually darker than that book. Now, when we're talking about dark, it's more or less overall, and this book isn't overall, like, entirely dark, but when you get to the dark stuff, it does kind of counter over that Jekyll and Heidi's darkness levels. So, instead of dealing with an entire town hating you, it's an entire camp against you. And it's for their own personal gain. They all want to get out of the camp. And it seems like they're going to do that by possessing you. Yes, there's possession in this story. So that adds to the darkness. There's a really creepy mystery, so I guess that can also help. And there's also ectoplasm everywhere. I don't know, I guess that exists, but besides that, this camp is very much a dark place full of pretty distraught, probably angry, feisty, very sad campers. They've been stuck here for who knows how long, and they want to get out. And the only way to get out is to possess the kids and walk out. It's pretty dark. There's lots of dark scenes involving them. They kind of argue a little bit from time to time, the campers. In the climax, at least, when they're trying to get into the bodies, they're fighting over who's going to get in. It's kind of funny. But, back to darkness. It is a pretty dark story with a pretty dark premise, at least in the later parts of the book. And, yeah, that's all I have to say. I'm just going to quickly pop in here. So, 110 hours later. Why is my voice deeper? Anyways, I want to make a quick point about Ghost Camp. This is kind of the reason why it's not above the next book in our top 5. The kids aren't completely fucking evil. They actually have good morals. They literally offer to, like, oh, I'm just gonna jump out of your body. I just needed to get out. And weird enough, I fucking believe that was actually their intentions. Why the fuck would someone want to live or become alive after they've been dead for so motherfucking long? I would just want to move on. I think those kids would either be fucking absolutely delusional, which they don't appear to absolutely be, if they want to live after that point in time, because they've been alive, well, not really alive, but living in that camp for decades. Next up is Headless Halloween. Now, it would be a crime if I didn't put this on here at least at some point, and I actually think it's a wee bit darker than Ghost Camp. Now, why? Well, this book has a lot of dead kids. So just like Ghost Camp, there's dead kids. And instead of just like, oh, they naturally died, we don't know, at least I don't remember how the kids died in this book. It might have been revealed, but if it was, I kind of forgot. Someone remind me in the comments. In this book, the kids died from falling into a fucking canyon. Now, it's not the world's deepest canyon, might I add, but it's certainly a deep canyon. It is relatively deep. It's like a couple, couple 100 feet deep. Yeah, you're gonna die. Oh, fuck. And then these kids have been stuck on the other side of this canyon. And the funny part is, they're not really angry about it. So I guess it kind of makes Ghost Camp a little bit darker in that aspect for their mood. But their mood towards the kid is kind of dark. And then, of course, the main character doesn't really want to be here. Except in the end. Moving on. It is pretty dark that these kids have been here so long, but they've turned demented. Per se. They're doing this really, really creepy Halloween party. It is very fucked up. They're putting their heads in a bunch of spiders and cockroaches and shit. It's not exactly normal. It's kind of creepy, demented, fucked up, that's the fucked up darkness. And yeah, this kid, the main character, he fucking dies. Yeah, I know I said death doesn't really count. If it did, Say Cheese and Die might be on here, but god damn, y'all, this kid fucking dies. He dies in the book. How often do you see a kid die in a Goosebumps book? Probably not very often. And guess what? It stays like that. He actually dies, and it stays like that. It's not Ghost Next where it's like, oh, it's moving on. The kid dies, and he's just a wandering spirit now. The book ends off on that note, and it's quite fucking fucked up. Like, really, Goosebumps? For your standards, that is pretty creepy. Not to mention, there's also some other stuff involving a haunted house that comes into the climax. It also follows the Free Good Deeds story, which I kind of like that part of the book. Especially since it ends up not working out very well for the kid, trying to accomplish those deeds. It's just a very, very dark story. But what's darker than all three of those stories, but not the next one, of course? Well, I present number 2, Welcome to Dead House, man. This story is so damn dark. Instead of having an entire camp or just a whole bunch of kids dead, we have an entire fucking town. It's an entire town, man. The entire town is dead and they are zombies. They can barely even leave because they can't go out in the sun. Kind of like vampires. They need to eat people to survive, which also adds to the darkness. They have to kill people to live on. It's just, there's some also really scary scenes, nightmare sequences, one involving a kitchen table, kind of like Say Cheese and Die Again's cover, if you know what I mean. And it's really, really gross, really, really disgusting, scary. The climax has some really gross out moments involving a flashlight in someone's face. I think you can put that to your mind when I mentioned earlier vampires. Yeah, this book is really gross, really gory at times, and really, really, really dark, with the whole town being fucking dead. Yeah, really fucking crazy. Not to mention, it wasn't a very calm death. They all died from chemicals, so it wasn't going to be very fun. Before we get on to number 1, though, I'd like to throw out a few honorable mentions. I won't iterate on these much, and I actually won't spoil anything too big. Cry of the Cat and The Werewolf in the Living Room. Now, these are my 2 honorable mentions for a reason, okay? Cry of the Cat, I think we all know and have read this one, but I won't spoil anything. In the first 5 or so chapters, I think literally like the 2nd chapter, something really rough happens to a character, and it may or may not be on the cover. And it's just kind of a really tonal change for the series, because up until this point, things don't die that often in Goosebumps, I'll say that. So when that happens, it's quite insane. More or less because of its placement in the series. It is the first series of Houseman, and immediately sets the tone with a death. It's kind of crazy. There's also a little twist later involving the owner of RIP, or at least the owner's mom, and it's quite dark. It is extremely dark, actually, but it's not dark enough to get onto the list because, we're dealing with multiple deaths and casualties, or people living in just absolute hell. Yeah, it doesn't make the list, really, in my opinion, but it's still relatively dark. Now, for Werewolf in the Living Room, it has something that none of these books actually have. And I won't iterate on it much more, but you can kind of get the idea. Human trafficking. Yeah. 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 And now for our number one pick. And you might know what it is. I've stated this a couple times in my life, or on the channel, and I'll say it again. The darkest Goosebumps book of all time is The Haunted School. Now, here's the thing. Instead of just being dead, instead of just dealing with emotions, what if it was not just that? What if it was put together, you're not really dead, but you're not really alive, and you are fully conscious in a prison where the only people you can talk to are a bunch of kids, and you're a kid as well, and you've been trapped there for over 50 fucking years, fully conscious, unaging, unable to probably fucking die. And not only that, everything is gray. Outside your window is a fucking cult with all of its members being kids who are also demented as absolute fuck. Drinking black liquids like it's fucking cocaine. I know I do every day, but... And just having these weird fucking rituals and ceremonies that are not only creepy, but make them look like psychopaths. Because they are. Truly. And also a really heavy mist, so you can't even explore the world that far. The world is also very small, and there is virtually no fucking escape, and after some point in time, you will never be able to leave, and you're trapped there for all of the fucking eternity. Just to sit there. Now, did that get the message across? I don't think I need to say anything more. The Haunted School has a really, really fucked up premise. I don't know what Stine was smoking, but I want some of that, man. That was really, really tough to read. It was just so eerie, and I loved it. This is why it's in my top 10 books of all time. It's got such a dark, very, very depressing mood. These kids must be depressed as absolute fuck, man. They don't really show it. They probably are, though. Especially when, there's a new kid. They're kind of a little excited, but, it's quite really fucking dark. Yeah, putting yourself in the shoes of these characters, it makes it even worse, and that's kind of what I did. I just imagined, what if I were in their shoes, just sitting there for who knows how long. I think it was 50 years, roughly, at least 40, in a room, no escape. The only escape makes you crazier, and you're still gonna be alive. You can't move on, you can't do shit. Yeah, this story takes the cake as the absolute darkest story. These kids are in literal fucking purgatory, and they cannot get out of it. Yeah, and you know what? Did I mention the ending? But the main character's also gonna be trapped there too. Yeah, fuck. Whoop-de-fucking-do. There's no happy ending even for this book. We kind of have one, but then it turns right back to the dark ending. Yeah, this book is single-handedly the darkest Goosebumps book of all time, and nobody's gonna change my fucking mind. Unless Goblin Monday has, missile attacks. Anyways, yeah, that is going to conclude this video. I want to know what you guys think are the darkest Goosebumps books of all time. Speaking of which, I also want to mention, this has a very similar premise to an internet series called The Backrooms, being trapped in some place with virtually no escape forever and ever until you rot away and die. Basically, it's The Backrooms, but you can't die. which makes this even worse than that, honestly. And that's gonna do it for this video. Like I said, hope you guys enjoyed. Tell me what you think the top 5 darkest Goosebumps books of all time are, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.